hugely discounted rate. This is why Tinubu is in France. But the problem here is this. Nigeria is already very good on this deal. And Niger Republic that is giving them much conditions, like you would have to kind of probably like redirect your pipeline to somewhere else. Or you will allow it on our own terms. So I don't know how much influence France thinks that Tinubu still has, or Tinubu's illegitimate regime still have in these West African countries who have sworn, and in fact, they have actually become more stronger now. You know what they did? When France and others were, including America, when they were playing the card of intimidation to intimidate these countries, that if they don't do what we ask you to do, this is what will happen and all that. These countries formed their own bloc by first removing themselves from the African Union, remove themselves from the ECOWAS, which simply means whatever it is that the Africans are agreeing with these Western countries, it will no longer be binding on them. A huge setback for all the decade-long planned, like what do you call economic sustenance of Europe since they terminated their supposed relationship with Russia. Now, Tinubu is in France with other nonsense they added to why he is in France. The main reason why he is there is to see if he could, even if he had no idea of how to do it, maybe they can help him to say, can you still please continue to talk to, because there has been so much setback on that project, especially since last year. This is their KKK project. So Tinubu is in France to possibly assure them that it will continue, or maybe to plot another means of how they are going to fight back and overthrow these regimes in West African countries. Something I possibly think it is almost impossible now. When these countries, right, when they were under France, France never, for once, right, trained their military or make their military strong enough to defend the country. The last 1.5 years of the bond between these West African countries has created some level of a strong military, economic bond, not only funded by or supported by Russia, it's also been funded by China. So now they might seem to be under the bullish control of France and America for a while. But now they are somehow with two more friendly world powers, Russia and China. And that is why some people are being skeptical that with the support of the likes of compromised Tinubu, who was willing and ready to invade Niger Republic and start a war last year on the order of France and America, until that plot got leaked. Now, you see this World War III, there are a lot of people are talking about since, right? Which is mostly the war of resources could be brewing in Africa, and not just Africa, in West Africa. Something that the likes of Tinubu and co wouldn't mind, as long as there's going to be something for them in it all. France has no economic, economic advantage for Nigeria. France and the French businesses, they do not have any economic, plus for Nigeria. They've never had anything for real. In fact, Nigeria was never a thing to them until 1.5 years ago, which started like 2 years ago. Now that they have this CIA assets, Tinubu, that is ready, that when they say jump, all is going to ask them is going to say, how high do you want me to jump? So everybody should kind of pay attention to the news that will be coming out of France and the news that will be coming out of Abuja in this frequent France trip of Tinubu. It is not in the interest of Nigeria. It will never be in the interest of Nigeria. And as long as there is going to be money to be made, Tinubu and his gang, they will be willing to play ball. As dumb as some of their actions will be, with the promise of support from France and then partly America, yeah, you should please pay attention that Tinubu was stopped from invading Niger Republic last year. Doesn't mean that the plan is off the table. It is not. We have received reports severally of how the Nigerian soldiers have been killed by now more powerful, Janjaweed terrorists in the Sahel. And lately, you've been hearing about the Lakurawa terrorists. They were also from Niger Republic, a mixture of the Sahelian terrorists who have access to sophisticated weapons, suspected to be from France, the French authority and all of that. The Burkina Faso soldiers, the Malian soldiers, the Nigerian soldiers have been recording casualties, increased terrorism, just like Nigeria has been, facing the same increased border terrorism in the last 1.5 years. Like, yeah, they might be using their media to suppress the story, the news and all that, but it's going on, it's happening. The report is that the terrorists in these West African countries are now more sophisticated than ever. And it is all because France, especially France, lost their cash cow. Do you know that France has been keeping the foreign reserve of these countries? Of course, I saw the news where Mali has now been reported to have paid off all their debts. But there is something I need you to know. If Mali paid any debt, I bet you it's not to France, because what they said was that the Malians, the Nigerians, the Burkina Faso, these 3 countries, especially these 3 countries, they are indebted to France. They are not supposed to be in any debt. Like I told you from the beginning, there are resources that are being stolen by France and French companies, being bought at ridiculous prices. The money is not even given to them directly. The money is paid to a bank in France. This was supposed to be their foreign reserve, their money. But guess what? Every time they want to make a withdrawal from it, they don't withdraw money to say, we are withdrawing from our bank account. No. Every time they make any attempt to withdraw money from that bank account, the money is loaned to them, which means they will pay back with resources. So immediately this coup happened, the countries, these 3 countries, they said, number one, France, in their sanction, right, they withheld their money. They said they won't give them all the money anymore. So these 3 countries also said, we're fine. We're also not going to pay any debt because we do not owe you any money anymore. So now they are selling their resources to countries like Russia, especially China. And China too, they are building infrastructures in this country. First time in their history that their partnership with, another country or all these supposed world powers is benefiting them infrastructurally, economically. It might take time for them to recover. So if they pay any debt at all, I promise you it is not to France, because immediately France withheld their money. They too told them, we are not paying any debt. We don't owe you any money. So keep all the money, keep all of that, and we are keeping our resources. Today, some of the French companies that you will still find in some of these countries, those are the ones who renegotiated what they told them was never possible. We cannot negotiate with you. That's the deal. But now they have to renegotiate. They have to pay the real price of the economic value of their resources now. Okay? And as for Russia and then China, they are building roads, they are building schools, they are building power stations, they are building things that France never built in 50 years of stealing from these people. So like I said, Tinubu has nothing to really offer them, except if they have to do what some of these Chinese are doing in Nigeria, stealing Nigerian resources, increasing terrorism in communities where resources, rare mineral resources are located. And if you look at the areas where you have the Fulani terrorists, where you have the Boko Haram and ISWAP and other terrorists in northern Nigeria, to be precise, these areas are areas where there are domiciled precious mineral resources hidden from the public, and the people in those communities have been chased away. And there are ongoing, right, illegal mining almost across Nigeria. So whenever you see terrorism in Nigeria, go on and do some geological research. There is a mineral resources in that community, in that local government area. And, and when you have seen people displaced, chased out of their farm, chased out of their communities, you realize that the weapons that are being used are the weapons from this terrorists from the Sahel. So the region is not experiencing any peace, but somehow, these countries, right, they are finding their bearing little by little. I mean, they are not expecting anything from the world. So if Tinubu is somehow still in bed with the imperialists, putting together plans, because they can be very patient. Yeah, it can take them years, but they can be very patient until they will get to whatever they want. They believe that. So Tinubu should be watched very closely. Everything happening inside that asshole rock or whatever they are signing, including people that are coming in and out of that place, you should pay attention. Because those who lost out from these West African countries, they are looking forward to Nigeria, which they believe have in abundance what they must have lost in these areas. So if they say, what is Tinubu doing? All this cultural exchange, youth leadership exchange, all this nonsense, these are just on the paper. The real thing is, number one, France. If France actually love Africa this much, if America love Africa, this West African this much, they would have helped us to end the Janjaweed terrorism, which has killed over 66,000 Nigerians in the last 10 years alone, and displaced over 10 million Nigerians in the last 10 years alone. And I'm not talking about all these other West African countries, so what they have lost. So if these guys actually love us this much, they will use all their expertise, their military, to save us from these terrorists who are ransacking these regions. But they won't do it. Because the bottom line is, if they try that, we are likely going to be economically viable. We are likely going to force them to pay the real price for what they are stealing from Africa. And that is a no-no. It is going to bankrupt them in Europe. And they won't do that. And this is part of what we are saying, that the resources is there. You know you need Africa. Why are you in these bloody, shady deals that will further impoverish Africans when you can actually come to the table, right? The resources are there. You need the resources. You need Africa. But pay the right price for these resources so that Africans, these West African countries, these rich African countries, can benefit genuinely from their own God-given resources. But that's not the deal. It is always exploitation, exploration that never benefits Africans. And there are already ready-made, willing tools like Tinubu and gang who are ready, right? As long as they will benefit. The rest of us can go to places. And they don't care. The last time this guy was talking, well, not the last time though, one of those, is Bulaba moments. and the Chinese guy was listening. You remember this clip?
We are committed to critical steps to reduce methane emission by ensuring flared gas are eliminated. There's a huge penalty for that. There's equally a huge incentive to do so. The measures that we're taking here is a welcome development, no doubt about that. And we are with the leadership of UAE for the commitment so far. We are consolidating on the gas export usage domestically and export for other countries. I can assure you that we will.
Africa is poor despite these rich resources that African have. Now, I think it was about 3 days ago, these same rich countries who are, they call something emission, that they want to cut down the something emission, right? By making sure that we are not burning our coals. They are doing this climate change and climate change that. Sure, you get. But the industrialized world, in the amount of the amount of emission, right, that they are releasing into the atmosphere, right? When they were like, measuring them, Africa has almost nothing. Africa is contributing almost nothing to this their gas emission or whatever it's called. But industrialized world like America, China, including Europe, right, where they are using everything to generate energy, they are telling us not to tap into our own. And guess what? For Africa not to use their own energy, not to dabble into energy independence, right? They offered $300 billion in aid to Africa for the next decade. That will give you some money. You don't need to develop your coal. You don't need to extract your crude oil. You don't need, that stuff, right? Because of climate change or that. But they are burning a lot, industrializing, growing. Africa needs needs our own resources as well to become industrialized countries. But they are promising them handouts that they shouldn't develop their energy sector. No, don't develop it. We'll give you some money. Okay? For this climate change this and climate change that. All right, so that you can use that one to promote trade, to promote this, to support women, to support children, and the rest of that. They will give them in the next 10 years. They promise them $300 billion. But you see, those resources are being taken cheaply. So the next 10 years, Africa will lose more than $300 trillion to this developed world. Meanwhile, they said Africa can make more than, if this is retained in Africa, Africa can make more than $50 trillion, which will be enough to lift hundreds of millions of Africans out of poverty. Do you know the population of all Africans? Our population is put at over 1.4 billion. That's the population of Africa. That is almost the population of India, pretty much than the population of China. Don't even talk about Europe. They don't reach that. And we have the youngest population. Africa has the population of the youngest people in the world, highest, right? But they have been told that no. They shouldn't develop their own energy sector because it's going to affect the climate. And there are willing criminals leading Africa that are already calculating how much they are going to make from that aid being promised them. And the next generation of Africans will actually be born into poverty, and they will die in poverty too. This is the world we are. And we have those who I believe hated us so much, but they are the ones leading Africa, unfortunately. Let's move on. Earlier today, Tinubu's tax reform came up for debate again. And you know that the campaign against it is already gaining momentum because it is believed that the northern Nigeria is going to be the most affected with this Tinubu's tax reform. They are spending a lot of time to explain it to a lot of people that no, it's in your interest, it's kineko. It is not. In all sincerity, by the way, if rather than do tax reform, they go for the true federalism. True federalism is when whatever Zamfara has, let Zamfara develop it, okay, to take care of our own people in Zamfara. Whatever Bayelsa have, let Bayelsa develop it, all right, to take care of the people of Bayelsa. Same way, whatever Lagos has, let Lagos develop it to take care of people of Lagos. Let the Zamfara people stop depending on the money coming from, the Niger Delta, and let everybody stop depending on one another. Just live according to your means. But Nigeria is a place where they will rob Peter to pay Paul. Okay? For example, I will use their VAT, for example. The way Nigeria is politically structured, Lagos is the richest state in Nigeria, and that is intentional. It's not because Lagos has done anything like unique to be the richest state. No. Lagos is politically, strategically placed to be the richest state in Nigeria because of the ports, as well as being the former Federal Capital Territory of Nigeria, the ports, the airports, and then the improved infrastructure to some level. And while other areas have been intentionally, right, underdeveloped. Even if you want to attempt to, you will not be able to. Except for those ones who are like, we're constructing this road and constructing that road. Or we are constructing this airport that no plane will land in. So Lagos is the richest. So therefore, Lagos alone is generating over 227 billion naira of VAT a year. Majority of the companies that are operating across Nigeria, they have to have their headquarters in Lagos. Therefore, their tax return is paid to Lagos. And so many other things that contributes to that. So, if Lagos is contributing over 60 to 70% of the total generated VAT in Nigeria, and Zamfara is contributing less than 0.1%. It's not even 1%, 0.1%. So when it is time to share the money, Lagos State will take 15% of that money. Zamfara will collect 1,800% of what they contributed. Imo State will contribute 5% of the VAT, and Imo State will collect 1,400, 1,500 worth of what they contributed. So this is how they rob Peter to pay Paul, left, right, and center. So what Tinubu is now proposing, according to them, is going to be, you will be paid a certain percentage of what you have contributed. For example, I think it's about 60%. So let's say Lagos State contributes 250 billion naira. So Lagos State will take more than 160 billion from that money. If Zamfara contributes 1%, and let's say the 1% is 200 million naira, they will give Zamfara 60% of that. Federal government will take 40. Similarly, what they take from Lagos. So they said if that happened, it won't be long before northern Nigeria will collapse.